Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the latest Same Old Arsenal podcast. Me, Suburban Gooner Chris, joining you as always for our summer series, One In, One Out, One Bangs. And this is episode 6, and I have another couple of absolutely fabulous guests, a couple of mates, a couple of guys who I've shared a glass with at football once or twice, and so I wanted to get them on, certainly to give their takes on who they really want in, who they really want out, and who they really think is going to smash it this season. If you've got any questions for both of my guests, and I'll introduce them in a second, please whack them in the chat and say hello in the comments as well. It'd be lovely to get some of you people waving at us and saying how much of a wonderful time you're having. Or if you think I'm just a terrible presenter, you can do that as well. Let's introduce our guests, shall we? Before I give them the concept, I've got to my right of the screen, it's Ben Leeder. How are you doing, sir?
Hello, mate. How are you? I'm absolutely fantastic. Thank you for having me on, mate. Really, really appreciate it.
How many levels of fantastic? Because Ben, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, he is an inspirational, motivational speaker. So how many levels of fantastic are you today, my boy?
We're currently on 3 out of 10. So let's see if we can get up to that, like 10 out of 10 at the end.
All right, let's see. And joining me as well as Ben tonight for this session is Woz, Arsenal Woz on Twitter. Woz, how are you doing, my man?
I'm good, buddy. It's been a long time, too long, some might say, but I'm trying to consume as many sports as I can to keep me occupied during this sort of downtime. But we're sort of back tomorrow, and we've got a bit of football back in the action, so I'm itching, mate. I can't wait, to be honest. And ironically, I think last time we shared a glass was at a Wembley, pre-Wembley, weren't it?
Yeah, a little bit of an aside. Will you be partaking the old JJ Moons?
JJ Moons is a distinct possibility.
Ooh, well,
I think that might well be a choice of I haven't fully decided yet. But
cross. I'll be with Giles and for those of you who know Giles, I'm going to try and get on the show, Giles and Mr. Seeger as usual. So maybe we will see you. And if you are going to the Community Shield, then please feel free to come to our JJ Moons, buy Woz and I a drink. We would be more than happy to accept and oblige that. Right, let's get into the premise of today. And today's the concept of this summer series is One In, One Out, One Bangs. So you two lovely gentlemen, my guests, have been granted 2 wishes and just an opinion from Mikel Arteta. You have saved one of his children from the sea in San Sebastian. And he has said, lads, I can't thank you enough. So I'm going to grant you 2 wishes. You can have 1 wish, which is you can have any player you want. Now, it's up to you how you go, because as I've said last week, this is, as I said, episode 6. We've had some random ones like Erling Haaland and Harry Kane, which I don't think got too much in the chat. We've had some realistic ones, such as, is Vlahovic realistic? Maybe Ivan Toney. I don't know. We've had some interesting left of field ones, like Jared Bowen. That's what we had last week with Kevin. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what these lads have as their choices. Let's kick it straight off. I was going to talk a little bit about maybe a Jurrien Timber, or actually, let's do that before we get into the One In, One Bangs, because we haven't had any confirmation yet. But I wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if during the sequence of this podcast, something gets announced and we have to stop everything and start talking about him. But let's get that out of the way first, just in case it happens. I'm going to start with you, Ben. Just some initial thoughts. Let's not do Declan Rice, because I think everyone's done that to death. But just some initial thoughts, minute or so, about Jurrien Timber. How excited are you?
I'm actually very excited. I've never seen him play, so I'm not going to pretend I know much about him. I've read articles, seen bits and pieces, and a lot of kind of people in the know in terms of kind of Dutch football said technically he's absolutely brilliant. He's on that level of kind of like where Martinez is, and obviously what we've seen with him at Man United has been absolutely fantastic. And technically wise, if he can be anywhere near him, hopefully with a bit of time, he can build up that kind of physical presence. So I think it's going to be great to have another kind of lad like that, of that quality, like in our defence, because I'm really, really interested to see where he's ultimately going to be fielded. But I think it's so important now that we're putting pressure on some of those guys. So it's not about relaxing. It's about how can we actually take them to a whole new level. And I think that sort of move is exactly what we need.
Nice. Woz, you excited, or are you a bit meh about this one?
No, extremely exciting, mate. I think for me, the most exciting point of it all is we're now at the stage where we're not signing backups. We are progressing the level of the squad. We're raising the level of the squad. These are serious footballers that are coming to join us. And I think as fans, we're going to have to get used to not expecting the new boy to start every week. It's going to be a process where I think Arteta's only downfall over the last couple of years, we've all seen it, is squad rotation. And I think that goes down to the lack of trust. And now we're not signing backup footballers. We are signing serious, talented footballers that become a rotation. And I think that's and they're all multi-skilled. That, you Jurrien Timber, you touched on it there. I mean, his ball playing ability is absolutely fantastic. It's exciting for me to see these kind of players being added, because it's no longer where we're filling gaps. We are now progressing, and that we're going to end up going from having 14, 15 reliable players to 19, 20. And that is where we really start competing. And I do think this summer is the one where we've flicked that switch, and the level of the squad really is being raised rapidly. So it's exciting, and I do happen to think that we've made major investments, and I do think there's a couple more positions that we will make major investments in either January or the summer. But we are close really to having a solid, settled, balanced squad. And the last thing quickly, it's so nice to have these players integrated into a settled, balanced team. Because how many years do we go in, regardless of when we sign someone this year? I'm not concerned, because they're dropping into the system. They're dropping into the balanced position. There's no rush. There's no we need to hit the ground running. We are in a really good place, mate. So someone like Timber, this is why we're the employer of choice, aren't we? Players want to play for us again. So it's exciting, mate. It really is exciting times.
Yeah, I think that's, from my perspective, in my own head, there's a little bit of a mindset shift that I'm going through at the moment, because I saw that link with Timber, and my thought was, well, hold on a second. We've got Tomiyasu, we've got Ben White, we've got, and people are saying, well, you can play Tomiyasu at left back. We talked about this online. I'm not too convinced about Tomiyasu at left back. I think he's a decent enough player for us, but I'm not convinced with him as a left back. And so I was thinking to myself, why are we spending 40 million euros or 34 million quid on this arguably very, very good player, but in positions where we're already stacked? But it's about raising that level, and it's time to just discard the favourites.
Yeah,
if you've got certain favourites in the squad, and just
it's hard though, mate.
Really
hard. It's hard. It is hard, but that's where you've got to try and take the emotion out of the situation, and that's where the top managers manage to do that, and then they keep everyone invested, they keep everyone on side, and they keep everyone involved in the squad, and that's what he's clearly done very well by sort of finding out the personalities, getting rid of them, and we've revamped, and we're now at the stage where the base layer is completely there. We've got some serious footballers, and we're now adding the cherries. Basically.
Yeah, it's quite exciting. It's quite exciting. So let's get into the fun part. Let's get into the hypothetical world. And Ben, Mikel Arteta is absolutely delighted that you've saved wee little Arteta from those high tides in San Sebastian. And he said, "Go on then, tell me who you want me to go out and get." Because Stan Kroenke's just written me Josh, Stan, whoever it is, has just written me a blank check. So let's have your first. Let's have your first one for the show, which is your one in.
My one in, I sort of automatically, when I was thinking about this, I went to complete fantasy, but it's just because I saw him recently at a game and he was absolutely fantastic, would be Evan Ferguson. I think it would be a great time to kind of pounce, because I think kind of in a couple of seasons time, everyone's going to be kind of looking for a centre forward. And if we could jump the gun on that, I think he's exactly the type of guy that we need, that could kind of be that guy at the front that offers something a little bit different. And I think that's going to be exciting this year, to go off tangent a little bit, is that we're going to see how everyone can fit in. But I kind of like the idea of having one piece that's kind of fixed and everything else kind of moving around it. So I think it would be to try and jump the gun, but also having someone that is actually really talented up in that centre forward goal, who's going to be able to score lots of goals. And I think that's our next target, is how can we get to that kind of 100 goal mark. So for me, it'd be bringing in a guy that I think we could really develop.
Yeah, nice. I like that. And we had that one last week, and he's a player that I don't really know a lot about, but I saw him when we were at the Emirates, and I thought he looks good. He looks very good. So quite pleased with that. And you're a man who loves a little bit of a scouting. He loves a little bit of an internet scout. Do you know much about Ferguson? Got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, he's seriously talented footballer. Ben makes great points there about picking him up, beating the market, and it's something that although we are now in a situation where we can buy superstars and we are spending dough on finished articles like Declan Rice, it's a really, really good idea to keep picking up them William Salibas. I mean, Saliba, £27 million. If you pick up a Ferguson for a similar, I mean, obviously it'll be a market value, so you're looking probably more 40, 50, but it's what's happened in the last few years. It's ahead of the game, and you are. It is a really, really good shout, mate. And he's such a talented footballer. It's going to be interesting to see how much game time he gets next season and how much of a key part of Brighton's team. Obviously, unless Ben gets his wish, then it'd be good to see how much game time he gets and how well he does. But he's got a lot, mate. He really is talented.
Yeah, he certainly looked good at that game at the Emirates. Just quickly, just before we move on to Woz's one, and I'll go back to you, Ben. What is it about him? Like, if there was one thing you could pick out that's like, this is what I love about him, what was it that stood out to you?
I think he's just quite snidey. He was quite sneaky. But against us at the Emirates, the kind of role that he had in playing, he basically was just like it's like table football. And he was just up and down in this straight line, dragging our midfield all over the gaff. Yes, he's a centre forward, but it was just quite nice to see him picking fights with people. He's just running past people and giving people a bit of a jab. And I think there's that almost grit needed to kind of win these bigger games, because saw someone mention this in the comments, is that we've now got to start beating these bigger teams. And I think it's important that we start integrating a bit of grit. I don't want to sound like a bit like your dad, but there needs to be a bit of grit in there. And I think having someone like that would be absolutely excellent, because he's physically like the team is getting bigger. Do you know what I mean? The height, the stature of everyone.
Yeah, we've got a proper team now, haven't we? I remember there's so many examples of, particularly during that invincible early Wenger years, where they used to talk about lining up in Highbury Tunnel, and you just look up at these massive units, and we're getting to that stage, which is really, really exciting. And just before I go into Woz's one in, guys, if you've got any questions for any of the chaps, you can pop them in the chat and then I'll star it. Of course, it doesn't have to be about their one in, one out choices. You can be about anything that you want to ask them, really. Ask Woz about his fabulous background that he's got and who his decorator is. I'm sure he'll tell you. But Woz, let's go to your one in then. Who are you picking?
Right, my main one in. I'll tell you my main one in a second. There's a young kid. I just want to bring him to light. He's from the Ivory Coast, centre back. He was at Midtjylland and he's moved this year to Sporting Lisbon. Ousmane Diomande, his name is. I'm telling you now, this kid's 19 years old. He is absolutely astonishing. He's in the top 2% in Europe at this age. He's obviously, it's only a small sample size for progressive passes, progressive carries. He is absolutely sensational. And at the moment, he's peanuts, and I really, really hope someone like Man United don't wake up to it. But in a few years' time, I mean, this kid, I'll tell you now, you have a little watch of him, sensational. But we're stacked in that area. But my main one, and I look now through our squad, I look at William Saliba, I see him as one of the best in the world in his position. I look at people like Declan Rice, Thomas Partey, I look at Saka and Martinelli. I look throughout that team, and I'm thinking, do you know what? We have got superstars. We got really, really top players in the key positions right through the sign. Even people like Gabriel Magalhaes, I think he's going to go on to continue to improve and be one of the best defenders on the planet. And it's really exciting. So then I look, and I know we've just bought Jesus, and a lot of people are talking about number 9s. I just think Victor Osimhen is that boy, mate. I just think he is an absolutely incredible footballer. I think the goals, I mean, obviously he scored loads in France, and then he got his move. He took a couple of years to ignite, and obviously he was an absolute star last season. But 24 years old, 25 in December, he's at the age now where he could go on to have an impact in the Premier League, like Drogba, like Henry. I just think he's a machine. I think he's got the complete level to his game, and that, for me, might be where the superstar signing will be next. I think that's where Arsenal might offload their biggest fee next. I think you've got to replace sort of Thomas Partey, but I do think that up there, up the top, we all love Jesus and he's absolutely magnificent at what he does. But I just feel that was a progression, and I think that there could be an absolute superstar there. Whether that boat sails and someone else snaps him up this summer and it's just not achievable, but he would be that piece of the puzzle, because you said earlier about moving towards scoring 100 goals. He's an absolute monster, mate. He really is. He can do that. He can do everything. He can run channels. He can drop short. He's strong. He's quick. He can head the ball. He's just got a natural eye for goal, and he's only going to get better. And I just think it's actually sensational to see a kid of that age, 24, just going on to 25. He's got a good 6-7 years ahead of him of scoring elite level goals. So it's very rare you see someone like Haaland that's so young, which is an incredible testament to him. But I do think if you're going to look at the next in line out there, obviously barring Harry Kane for goals, you know, which is probably not achievable. Yeah, I just think he would be the guy I'd go for. That would be where I would, the position that I think we can splash on, and that he would be my choice.
Nice. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then I'm going to give Ben a stab at Osimhen. And if you want to talk about Diomande as well, Ben, you're more than welcome to. Obviously, that's a left of field one that I'm not too familiar with, so you feel free to tap out if you don't know too much about him. How much of a success? Because Italian strikers don't tend to travel too well. Do you think he could be? Do you think that's irrelevant? How much do you think he would cost? I guess is my question.
He's Nigerian.
No, but he's coming from Italy.
Coming from Italy, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so you mean coming from the Italian league? Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I think you're looking at, Napoli, De Laurentiis. They're not. They don't get made a fool out of. But what they do is they know that a player has a price, and if you come to them with that price, I think they would move. I reckon you'd probably be looking at about 120 mil in that ballpark, and I actually think that's worth it. And when I look at Balogun and Eddie, and I think that there's fees you could probably extract from that. I think you're taking a large chunk out of that. I don't think it's not achievable. And I think, as I said, every year we might be able to have the superstar signing. And as that comment there said, I do think Chelsea might be trying to jump the gun on him, but they're going to. I'm not sure they can offload that 120 million on him this summer. And it's the same similar situation with Moises Caicedo, who, by the way, would have been my other pick. So I just think he's a sensational player, and I think long term he's the one to run in that midfield. Him and Declan Rice together would just be phenomenal. But yeah, I do think it's achievable, mate, and I don't think he would have any issues because of his style of play. I don't think the adaptation period is even in question. Like you might look at someone like Vlahovic and it's a bit more clunky, but I mean I just think Osimhen's so free and. I just think he would run right in the Premier League. I just think he's built for this kind of confrontation, this kind of physicality, and I think he would just have great fun here. So I think he will end up in the Premier League as well. There's a number of clubs that it could be. It could be anyone. Could be United, Chelsea, Arsenal. Newcastle might stump up big fee next time. There's plenty of clubs. So I do think he will end up here because I think he's just built to play in England.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one because it feels like England is the only real natural place, isn't it? I mean, Real Madrid, all the talk is about Mbappe. And if they really have just earmarked Mbappe for next year and they're just looking for a stopgap, then they're not going to spend 100 million quid on 120 million quid on Osimhen. And then you look at what are the other big leagues. Well, Bayern Munich aren't going to fork out that sort of money. They'll just pilfer from within the German league. So it does feel like that type of move. And I think this is kind of where you're getting at was. I think that feels like a later on in the window type thing when like there's some of the dominoes need to fall type stuff. And if that's the case, we've done all of our business and we've started to shunt some out of the door. And so there's a bit more money in the kitty to go big. Then you never know. Ben, your thoughts on Osimhen?
Because it's fantasy. I don't care. I'd say buy it, mate. But if we were talking actual real life Arsenal, it gives me a little bit of like Koulibaly vibes. It's like he had a solid block of time where he looked unbelievable. Do you remember that like bicycle kick? And I wouldn't be sure in my mind if the amount you'd have to pay for him would be worth it. I think that's why when I sort of thought about Evan Ferguson, I sort of listed out all the strikers. And I was thinking like there isn't actually that many. Like we seem to go through periods, don't we, where there's like a lot of something else, but it doesn't seem to be that many top class strikers on the market at the moment. So if it was fantasy, I'd be I'm game. But if it wasn't, I'd see where we were and if someone like Evan Ferguson was available at that time, just because I think it would be more value for money. But I'm probably going to get bit in the arse for this, and it'll probably turn into like peak Ronaldo. But when I see it, I'm not 100% sold.
Yeah, it's what's the thing that makes me interesting, and the only thing I'd say about Koulibaly is I think that move for him needed to happen 3-4 years ago, because when he joined Chelsea, he looked just a bit off pace. He didn't look like the same beast that we'd seen a few years ago. And what is he, like 31, 32 now, something like that? It just feels like he'd probably peaked. Awesome. That's not Osman, Koulibaly I'm talking about. Well, just before we go into the one outs, just if you want a rebuttal on that, because obviously it's your choice.
Yeah, no, I just think we will only see. Time will tell with that, mate. But I do think he is worth that money, because I see, as I said earlier, I see him as the Drogba effect, the Thierry Henry effect, that kind of guy that comes in and all of a sudden you go from scoring 20 goals to 33, 34 a season, and them 13, 14 goals, they make the difference and they win titles. And I think I know City have been winning comfortably, but everyone was questioning Haaland's impact initially at the start of the season, and then look what he's gone on and done in his first full season in English football. I mean, it's just he's that kind of guy. So yeah, I do think they're few and far between, and I really do like Ferguson, but in my mindset now, I'm targeting the next world-class signing, and I'm not thinking about 5 years' time. And that's selfish of me, but I just think we're at a stage now where we can compete. We really can compete. And if you've got Saka and Martinelli there, and you stick someone like Osimhen in the middle, I mean, for the next 4 years, wow, incredible. And then the ironic thing is, you could probably sign someone like Osimhen, have him for 4 years, and then sign Ferguson and get it. It's the beauty of it. He's at that age, so. That's the only reason why, and that's the reason why I think although it's, we're talking astronomical money for any footballer, and that's just the market at the moment. But when you look at what we can do with sales in our squad, it's not unachievable. So although it is a fantasy signing, I do think that we are number one, an employer of choice. So I don't think he would be turning us down. Wages wouldn't be an issue. It would just be agreeing that fee, So it'd be interesting to see, but we can only, it's a pipe dream.
But it's exciting now, and this is why this pre-season is so exciting. I don't remember being as excited for a pre-season like this for a long, long time. Like even last season, I was sort of excited, but a little bit nervous because we just finished fifth, and in hindsight, you look at where we were at the end of last season, where we'd finished fifth, but basically we were just beset with injuries, and you could see then we were going in the right direction, but you still have that fear. And even now, I sort of have the fear of, what happens if we pick up a few injuries stuff? But we've got such an amazing squad. It's brilliant. And with that amazing squad, we of course need to put some unfortunate players into the bin. And so we come to the next section of the show, and I'll start with you, Woz, the one out. Now show your workings here, mate, because I mean, and I'm happy to lead the witness a little bit, because we've got to make, you're allowed to make some assumptions that there are certain players like a Cedric that are going to be, or probably Pepe as well, are going to be moved out anyway. So this is you can pick anyone, and that's why I think a few people have gone for Eddie Nketiah, because they're thinking, well, we've got Flo Balogun and we can make some money from him. So where's your head at on the one out?
I'm another one of them, unfortunately. It's not. I'm of the opinion. I do think we'll see possibly double figures players leave the club this summer. I do think there will be. I think there's a lot of work going on to get a lot of these players out of the way. And I just think when you look at the value of the player, I like Eddie a lot. I really want him to do well. But from our point of view, I think it's a good time to sell him while the iron's hot. And I think he will go on to have a fantastic career in the Premier League. I can see him sort of replicating Jermaine Defoe's impact. I think if he went to a club like West Ham, although I don't want to sell him anyone anymore, but I think it would just be a superb move for him. I think he'd be the main man. I think he'd get himself between 15 and 20 goals a season. I think he's at that kind of club. I think it's a really, really shrewd signing for a lot of clubs. So obviously there's no point in having both Balogun and Eddie, and I think there's a bit of an intrigue about Balogun, because we've seen what he's done last season. We haven't had the opportunity to experience it ourselves here. There's a potential that he could absolutely explode, and there's also a lot of growth for Eddie Nketiah as well. But it's hard. I look at Eddie as a player, and I just think long term his level is very, very good Premier League striker. But is he elite? Not for me. I look at Balogun, I think there is potential to become an elite centre forward. But also, like I was saying, if someone comes waving £50 million at you, the situation the squad's in, the signings we've already made, that I wouldn't. Sometimes you have to sell players to progress, even though you might not want to. And I look at someone like Emil Smith Rowe in the same vein. If he had gone Aston Villa a couple of years ago for 35 million, you know, at the time that might well have been a good deal for us. And we all hope and hold out that he has a fantastic injury-free season this year and progresses. But sometimes you have to make tough decisions. And Eddie's an Arsenal boy. You know, he come in last season, he gave his all for the club, but it's very difficult. And a lot of people, they're saying, look, you've got to choose between the two, which unfortunately I think it is becoming that way. But I think for the good of Eddie's career, I'd just like to see him go and really, really kick on in the Premier League and make a solid name for himself, because I'd love to see him do that. And I just think Balogun would be maybe a little more marketable to the European market. I think if it didn't really work for him, he's not going to lose much value. Whereas I look at Eddie and I just don't see him being that attractive to an AC Milan, or you just see what I mean. So it's no slight on Eddie. I really do think he's a talented player. I really like him, and he might well go on and make me look like a complete and utter wanker, which is more than potential. But you know, it's just I had to make a decision. And as you said, there's no point in talking about Rob Holding, Cedric, El Neni, them kind of players, because we're all fully aware that no matter how much we like them as humans or whatever they've done, and they're nice guys and all that, they're just not of the level. And that's what I was saying earlier. It's exciting now about raising that level of the squad, where we can look at players like Tomiyasu and say, wow, look, like he could possibly be third choice out there, but look at the quality we got. So, yeah, unfortunately for me, mate, it's not a nice thing to suggest, and I really, really do like Eddie Nketiah, and I do wish him the best, but that's just where I think you have to make that cutthroat choice and sort of take the value for the player while it's there, because we didn't do it with people like Ainsley, and obviously we've ended up, you know, losing him for nothing when it was bids from Wolves for 20 odd million, and at the time we just didn't act. So sometimes you just have to sort of take the risk and see where it goes. But yeah. Sorry, Ed.
I think that's true. That's absolutely true. An interesting thing that Carl's just said in conversation in the chat, based on what a single season in the French league, Lacazette smashed that league last season, convinced me. I'm going to say, I know it's a different position here, Carl, but I'm going to say a player's name in the Arsenal squad at the moment who played a lot of football in France, William Saliba. He came, and everyone was saying, I heard people saying, yeah, but the Premier League isn't the French league. How do you know William Saliba is going to be that fantastic? And you just, with some players, you just have a feeling, and I sort of have that feeling with Balogun. Ben, I just want you to comment on Balogun, and then we'll go straight on. You can go straight into your one out. Where's your head out with Balogun? Oh, sorry, not Balogun. The Eddie Balogun debate, and who is your one out?
I agree with what was whoever we would get the most money for, basically, in my opinion, because I think Balogun is, I just think about Ainsley Maitland-Niles when we had that opportunity to sell him for sort of 20 odd or whatever the offer was. I've slipped from my mind. But we didn't take it because we wanted him to do this and that. And we've got an opportunity to make a hefty amount of money off Balogun. Like, it's raw profit. Like, he's come through the academy. And again, something you lads said earlier is that we've just got to get used to people going, right? Like, if we're clever, we just put a buyback in it. If AC Milan or insert sexy European club are willing to pay like 30 to sort of 50 mil, I think you've got to take it, because I don't think anyone's going to pay that sort of money for Nketiah. You might get a Palace looking at him. I know they've looked in the past. But in Eddie's defence, like, he did it for us for a bit, right? It wasn't Jesus. He covered for a long time. Did he get the goals? No. But he covered. He did the best that he could with the experience that he's pretty much had. So I agree with what you guys said on that one, really.
Okay. And who's your one out?
The actual answer is Thomas Partey.
Explain.
Do I need to?
Yes.
It is live on the
internet. Without causing any focus on football.
It's just time. It's just time to go with new things.
Interesting. All right. Well, do you want to talk on the party stuff? I'll jump in on two things there. I put this in the chat. Given that we were talking about the Eddie, or what would you rather take? Would you take 25 million for Eddie or 50 million for Balogun? Yeah. You like that, don't you?
I do like that, but I would 100% take the 25 million for Eddie for the reasons I said earlier, that I still think Balogun is very marketable, and I still think his value will not decrease, and the whole American situation and the European clubs, as Ben said about the sexy European clubs coming in, I just see that Balogun is not going to decrease in value. And if he does turn out to be fantastic for us, and it's great, it's fantastic for us. But if he doesn't, he's still going to be marketable. He's still going to be worth that sort of sum of money, and you can still sell him for a hefty lump and put it towards my boy next year, hopefully.
Nice. Ben, just quickly, we'll move on to our final feature. 25 million for for Eddie, or are you going 50 for Balogun?
I want 50, so Woz can get his lad in.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Right, Woz, let's have it then. One to bang. Who is that one player that you think this guy's going to go supernova next season? And it can be a player who's already brilliant and is just going beyond brilliant.
Look, as I alluded to earlier, I think the important part of our squad, we've got two fantastic wingers that have not had the rotation. They can't continue this way. If we want to compete in all the competitions, they need rotation. There's a young kid that I've watched since very, very, very young, way back when he was neck and neck with Jadon Sancho, and that's Reiss Nelson. I think Reiss, people do not realise the ability this kid has. He is absolutely sensational. For me, he should be in rotation with Martinelli on that left-hand side. When you see this kid get confident and progress, and we've seen glimpses, we've seen him take the ball like Brighton in the cup. He's running through people left, right, and centre. He's had moments. The incredible goal against Forest, he done really well. But these are all moments. But I do think there's a level of consistency there, and once he finds that, I've not seen a guy that can spin. The best thing about him is he can spin both ways on a sixpence. He's 2-footed. He's so quick through the ground, through the thirds. It's like once he starts dribbling, you just can't touch him. And he gets that confidence in the final third, and it's going to blow. And it's going to be very, very important to us. And what it's not going to do, it's not going to displace Martinelli, and it's not going to displace Saka. But what it's going to do is add additional goals and assists and big moments in big games. And there's a lot of football to be played. And to get through these competitions, to have much better progress in the cups, better progress in Europe, we need people like Reiss Nelson. And I really do think that Mikel Arteta spoke about him on many occasions. If you remember, he spoke about him last year saying, look, we love this player. He's seriously talented. He's back. He's ready to go. He's showing all the right signs. And as Reiss has alluded to in an interview this year, all he wants is to stay fit and get that level of fitness up. And then the brain starts ticking with it. Once the body's fit, then the brain gets fit. And once the brain's fit with someone like Reiss Nelson, I'm telling you now, there's no looking back, because he had so much ability. He was way better than Jadon Sancho at the younger age. Sancho went obviously from Watford up to City, and Reiss was at the Arsenal, and he's just, he excelled through all the age groups. Even he was better than Saka at a younger age, and Saka's just gone absolutely blown early. But you just have to bear in mind, you look at players like Sadio Mane, some players don't erupt till 24, 25, and Reiss is getting to that age. And it's really going to be exciting to see what he can do, because the new contract speaks volumes. It speaks absolute volumes that he's turned down AC Milan, he's turned down other clubs. Arteta's not going to have lied to him. We keep hearing about Arteta talking to boys and doing everything they can to convince them. I'm telling you now, Reiss would have took some convincing, because he had offers on the table there, sexy European clubs. He's seen what English players have done, gone abroad and enjoyed themselves. But now he's here. He must have discussed him. And I genuinely do think that left-hand side is where he's best. He's so dangerous cutting in on his right, but he can also go fast on the outside. It's just an exciting position to be in, and I do think he'll be my guy. Although it might not be week in, week out, I think his improvement and his contribution to the squad, he'll be the one to bang.
Yeah, a really interesting one. I think fitness has always been one of the biggest problems. He's always been injured at that moment. Like even this season, he got injured in January, I think it was, and missed the FA Cup. And the season, I think last season, like he's had times where just at that moment where there's an opportunity for him, he's been injured. I think even last season during pre-season, I think he picked up a knock, because I think there were talk about are we offloading him, but we didn't offload him because he was injured, and so he stayed with the club. But a lot of people thought, oh well, that's a real, we've lost out on a fee or whatever it was. But actually, it's not just that. It's when players miss pre-season, it basically dents a big chunk of their whole follow-up season. So even if he was going to have a brilliant season, it was really sort of dented and stunted from that perspective. Yeah. I'm going to bring Ben in. Go on.
Right, go on, mate. No, I was just going to say, and also I think it's a bit difficult for Reiss from the romantic side of things as a fan, because we've been so blessed lately with young academy products. making huge appearances and huge impacts. People kind of forget that Reece is one of those. Reece has been at Arsenal since a little boy. Like, he is Arsenal through and through. And to see that moment against Bournemouth, and it's just, and it sums him up that even in that moment, after all that years of being at the club and the emotion and everything that was going on, he's just the one running around going, "Calm down, boys." And that's his, that's his mentality. He's cool, calm, collected. And once he starts getting them goals and getting that confidence and getting them assists and getting in the team and playing all regular, I just think, mate, we have got a serious football on our hands here, and another one that cost us nothing.
Yeah, really, really good point. I'm going to bring Ben in a second, but Amanda's asked me to just do a quick preview for her show on Sunday, I think it is. So just going to play this quickly, and then Ben will jump in on your thoughts on Nelson and your one to bang.
Hi everyone, hope you enjoyed the show. I am back on Sunday 7:30 with 3 extra special guests. See you then. Have a great evening. Bye everyone. Hi everyone, hope you enjoyed the show.
Does it on a loop? Didn't know that. There you go, Amanda twice there. But Ben, so Reece Nelson, thoughts?
He's got nowhere to hide. The boy's got nowhere to hide this year. That's a big contract. That's a lot of money. And I obviously really, really want him to do well, because obviously he's come through. He's one of us, like was said. He's been here forever, right? And you want that, because again, from a football point, from a connection point, it's absolutely incredible. But he's got to show up now, because again, that's a lot of faith. Because part of me thinks, is that just almost like a tactical contract, right? Let's secure some depth in these positions. But then part of me goes, no, well, he obviously sees something. He believes something in him. So I hope that he almost repays the faith that Arteta and the club have kind of put into him. Because again, we've seen glimpses. That Bournemouth moment is going to go down history as one of our greatest moments. Like, it was unreal, right? And if he can go on to do more of that, that'd be absolutely fantastic. So I hope he can.
Yeah, go on then. Who's your one to bang?
It's Martinelli. I think he is so close to just being unreal. Like, he was amazing last year. And I think he is going to add some more goals to his tally this year, because there was vibes that he was getting in quite a few times. He was getting closer. He scored some fantastic goals last year. But I think if he can add that next level of goal, we've got a serious, serious player on our hands. Someone that a lot of the other bigger clubs are going to try and come and take off us. Like, we know that they'd probably take him anyway. But I think once he adds those goals and that kind of extra level of, like, how old is he now?
I think he's 21, is he? 21, 22?
Yeah, because we're getting into that point where Arsene used to say that players get to a certain age and then the goals kind of come. So we're getting to that period. So I hope that it clicks for him and he absolutely kind of takes off, because like I said earlier, if we can add to get to that 100 goal tally, I think it's got to come from as many people as possible. And I've put my money on him getting a large chunk of it.
Yeah, the excitement of the potential of those young forward line players going even further and getting even better. That's the sort of stuff that makes me think next season could be our season. I don't want to do it. I'm gonna, and when it kicks off proper, I'm gonna spend most of the opening week saying, nope, I'm not believing it. I'm gonna get up until April. If we're top of the league in April, I'm still gonna be like, no, I'm not gonna believe it. I've been let down too many times. But was just to wrap us up before we go on to just a couple of bits of housekeeping at the end. Martinelli, thoughts on him banging next season?
What a footballer! Hands down, mate, he will go down as one of the greatest signings in the Premier League history. How'd you find a geezer from the 3rd division in Brazil? How do you go out there and just pluck him up for 8 million, whatever it was? Mate, the guy is absolutely sensational. And I actually genuinely do believe, I think long term in his career, he belongs through the middle. I just think he's got the lot. And I think once that finishing comes, he's just continually progressing. And what I like most about Gabriel Martinelli, when he came to the club, obviously he had a couple of big injuries, and when he returned from them injuries, he lacked confidence, he lacked physicality. He was still such a young boy. He looked really sort of within himself. And the last sort of 18 months, both him and Saka, by the way, have progressed astronomical amounts. They had obvious quality, but the levels that they've jumped are scary. And like you said there, mate, if they start jumping again, then wow. And this is what I said earlier. I look at them in their position, and I genuinely do think we've got two of the best in the world. We're not talking about Yeah, they're good in the Prem. We have got two of the most sought after, aggressive, exciting, attacking, scary wingers on the planet. And when you add that with Declan Rice, the two big centre backs, the keeper, right through the spine, Martin Ødegaard is still such a young player in his role, but he's going to be huge and he's already getting the consistency in his game. We're creating a super team here. So it's exciting. It really is exciting. And Martinelli, I completely agree that he could be one to bang in a sense that his performances will continue to improve, but it's the numbers. And the numbers are what are going to go, like Ben alluded to. Once they go again, that's where we're really because they were good last season, the numbers for both wingers, really good. But we can add more. They can do more, and it's almost like you're looking back at the years of Pires and Freddie on either side contributing. And I know we're always going to go back to that team, but the romantic side of it is having two flying wingers that can contribute, that are skillful, that no one likes to defend against, and then you've got tactically we're so astute, so there's players coming from all over the place. We're just a nightmare to play against, and Martinelli for me is the epitome of the hard work, the pressing, the aggression, the tenacity, but along with that, the pure quality and the ability to sort of be 100 mile an hour and slow down in a game situation and just think about it. So yeah, brilliant, and he really is he's a star. So great.
Love it. Love it. Right, we're just coming to the wrap-up section. So I've got a couple of questions for you guys. Bit of a long one from Emerson Allen Cozier. So let's focus in on the end of the question, which is about the New York trip, both Rice and Timber being part of that squad. I like the end bit. So I want to ask Ben, do you think Walters, Nwari and Lewis Skelly are going to go to the US?
I really hope they do, because if I'm wrong, he didn't take many youth away with the preseason last year, and he got a lot of heat for it, and people were saying, why aren't they doing this, why aren't they doing that? But these two lads are obviously unreal. Like, if you've not seen them or any clips or anything, like, highly recommend. Like, they are just absolutely outrageous. I hope they do, so they get a feel for it, and then we can see if they're at that level and decide almost like what the next move for them is. But those two look like some guys that are actually going to actually break it into our team. So fingers crossed that they do get to go.
Nice. Right, question for you was from Carl. What constitutes success and what is failure next season?
I think I know it sounds silly, but a similar season to this year for me would be deemed as failure, in a sense that we had no progression in the cups. We were quite poor in Europe, and I allude to the fact that I do think it was down to not trusting the squad, and when we were forced to bring in the likes of Rob Holding, it all went to absolute poo-poo. Whereas this year it's not going to be Robert Holding, is it? It's going to be someone like Jurrien Timber, and the depth is there in a lot of positions. So I would constitute that as an unsuccessful season. I do think we'll be up there and compete. The league will be way tougher this season. You know, Poch at Chelsea, no matter what, they've spent a lot of money, but they have got a very, very decent squad of players. And if you can start getting a tune out of them, they're going to be a danger. And I think the head-to-head games are going to be a lot tougher this year, and it might not be as easy to gain as many points. Newcastle are going to improve. Tottenham have got the new manager in, and they'll still always be pony, so we won't got to worry about them. But I do think it's going to be a good league. Aston Villa are doing bits. You know, Pau Torres, good signing. Emery's got them singing a tune. So there's no easy game in the Premier League. So I'd love to be up there competing for the title. I'd love to be involved come March again, come April again. It'd be absolutely fantastic. But for me, now he's adding that depth to the squad. I'd like to see us progress in the Champions League, and I'd like to see us hopefully go and win a cup, because ultimately football is about winning trophies. So top four, you know, we should be achieving that. I know I talk about all these other teams improving. I think we should be doing that. It's fantastic how quick we've elevated ourselves to this level. I think we might be a year or two ahead of where the club maybe thought they were going to do, and that's why they're now happy to say, okay, Mikel, look, you've shown us, mate, what do you want? And he's gone, oh, I fancy some Rice, and I fancy Havertz, I fancy Timber, and they've just gone out and gone, bosh, there you go. So it's really good to see everything's moving in the right direction. So I'll be very disappointed if we don't, especially with the depth of the squad, take the cup competitions way more seriously. Because when I talk about players like Reece Nelson, and you look throughout the squad now, the backup in every position is more than good enough to go out there and perform in the Champions League group stage if required. But I'm not saying wholesale changes, but, you know, one or two in and out, and it shouldn't affect us as much as it was last season, because losing Jesus, stylistically, we completely, although Eddie worked hard, you know, it hurt us. It did hurt us not having that replication. And that's why I do think Kai Havertz, if Jesus is not fit, will replicate his role. I think it's an astute signing, and it stops the drop off, mate. So yeah, I think we should go out there, have a good crack at the cups, Champions League, and then let's see where the Premier League takes us. But whatever happens, I don't think we'll lose many fixtures next season. I really don't see it. I think we're a top side, and we're difficult to play against, and we'll drop points, but I think we'll be very, very tough to beat, which is, it's not something that we're used to saying about the Arsenal, because for years we've been nice to watch. You know, we've done good things, we've done this, done that, but we were always a soft underbelly. We're not anymore. We're a serious club.
Yeah, and that's an exciting prospect. And Ben, just to wrap us up for today, then, success and failure for you.
Just more, do you know what? Just more of the same. Like, I could talk about getting into the cups, and obviously we have to take those more seriously because we just didn't do it. And now we've obviously got more of a solid kind of base and more of a solid squad that can actually help us achieve across all the fronts. Is incredible. But from like what you said right back at the beginning, Chris, really resonated with me, is that a lot of through the season, I was just trying to sort of change my identity and beliefs around the team. So I'm sitting there thinking, can we do this? Are we allowed to think like this? Is this normal? And do you know what? I just want more of that, the feeling that we're actually going after it. Yes, obviously would love us to win the league. And I think it's so important for actually the growth, for us to really cement who we are and really like build upon it, right? And start actually achieving big things. But just to be in the mix, have those memories, have those moments, and just as many as possible, right? So we can, because the feeling at the games this year was just unreal. Like that feeling, that vibe as you're walking around, finding seats, getting drinks and all this stuff. It was just this lovely connection. I just want more of that, and I hope that can continue, and I hope that we can all feel it together, because I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Well, listen, lads, it has been amazing getting your opinions and your one ins, your one outs, and your 1-2 bang next season. As always, a fantastic chat with you. Thank you very much, everyone who has been in the chat and sharing your thoughts as well. Been lovely to have you join us. Of course, Amanda's back on Sunday, so get yourself on and along on Sunday, and she'll be running her latest show. I will be back next Wednesday for another one of 1 in, 1 out, and 1 bangs. I cannot remember who the guests are, but I'll just retweet it closer to the time. So Woz, as always, thank you very much for joining me, mate.
Lovely to see you, mate. Top man, thank you for having me on.
And Ben, always a pleasure.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate you.
We will see you next time on the same old Arsenal podcast. Ciao for now. See you later, guys.